Accessible data does not need to be completely open. The FAIR principles recognize that certain types of data need to be protected. This includes anonymized data where there is a risk of re-identification or where the subject matter is not appropriate to be completely open. Commercially sensitive information, the location of endangered or protected species or habitats, or where a data sharing agreement allows for future reuse in research but doesn't allow the data to be shared openly. So the FAIR principles state that data should be as open as possible but as closed as necessary. This means that even closed and protected datasets can be fair. When you consider accessibility, you should think about how a user, be they person or machine, gains access to your data or research object. Once they have found your data, how will the third party retrieve the data or research object? Will the data be completely open and free to download, or is access restricted? If your data is restricted, what does that mean? Is there an application process? How is that communicated and administered? What is not considered fair is data available on request, or access from author on request. Your data should be available completely independently of you. For all fair data retrieval of at least the metadata, the information about your data, rather than the data itself, should be free and simple, like clicking on a HTTP link or an FTP link. No special software or program should be required. It should be familiar and recognizable to everyone. Most digital content is accessed through clicking on a link. This method is widely recognized and needs no instruction. Sticking to recognized simple protocols such as this make it easier for a third party. It also means that anyone with an internet-capable device and an internet connection should at least be able to access the metadata. So as I have said, the A in fair does not necessarily mean open or free. Rather, it implies that one should describe the exact conditions under which the data are accessible. Access to the data may require authorization and authentication. Ideally, accessibility is specified in such a way that a machine can automatically understand the requirements and then either automatically execute the requirements or alert a user to the requirements. Although for most repositories, this is still a manual process. An example of this is the Irish Social Science Data Archive, or ISDA. The protocol is clear, authorization is required, and requests for data have to be reviewed. It's not directly machine actionable, but it is easy to follow. Another facet of data accessibility is trying to keep at least the metadata around for as long as possible. Datasets or research objects can degrade or disappear over time, or can be corrupted or have to be removed from a data repository. And they can be expensive to store and maintain long term. Or the legal and ethical landscape can change and it's no longer appropriate to share the data. When this happens, links become invalid and users waste time hunting for data that might no longer be there or exist at all. Storing the metadata is generally much easier and cheaper and less likely to be corrupted. Also, the metadata are valuable in and of themselves when planning research, especially replication studies. Even if the original data are missing, tracking down people, institutions, or publications associated with the original research can be extremely useful. It is also possible to update the metadata to say that the dataset is no longer available, thus preventing time-consuming search by researchers. So rather than ending in a 404 error, wondering what happened, or trying to continue your search, you have an explanation from the metadata as to why this data is no longer available. For the most part, accessibility can be achieved by placing the data in a suitable repository where the data can be stored safely long term. Some examples of generalist repositories include Zenodo and Figshare. For information about discipline-specific repositories, please consult fairsharing.org. Thank you for listening.